Spring Data REST is part of the larger Spring Data project, which simplifies the development of data-centric applications in a Spring environment. In this video, we will first talk about Spring Data REST and the unique benefits it brings to us. Next, we will create a Spring Data REST project and show how we can easily create CRUD RESTful APIs with ease and minimal code. Spring Data REST is a framework that simplifies the development of REST services for data access in Spring applications. It provides a convenient way to expose JPA repositories as RESTful services, allowing developers to create, read, update, and delete resources over HTTP. One of its unique benefits is that it eliminates the need for manual controller and service layer coding, as it automatically generates RESTful endpoints based on the repository interfaces. This significantly reduces boilerplate code and accelerates the development of RESTful APIs for data access in a Spring application. Let's see it in action. Here, I am on start.spring.io website. Let me choose Maven. Language is Java. Spring Boot version is 3.1.5. Let's leave everything as the default value. Description as Spring Data REST. Let's add dependencies for Spring Web, Spring Data JPA, REST repositories, which will bring in Spring Data REST, and finally H2, which will be the backend database we will use in our project. Click Generate. Now, when we go to the Downloads folder, we see the demo.zip file over here. Let's unzip it. Here is our familiar Maven structure. Let's open up IntelliJ, choose Open Project, and point it to the folder where we extracted the zip and say Open. Trust the project. Here is our project. Let me open the pom.xml file and we can see the dependencies we added for JPA, Spring Data REST, Web, and H2. Here is the main Java class. Let's right-click on the package node, choose New Package, name is Model. Right-click on the package node, choose New Class, call it Items. Mark it as a JPA entity. It has an attribute private int ID. Let's mark it as the primary key with the @ID annotation. Generation strategy is auto. So the ID will be auto-generated at the time of insertion. Let's add private string name and private double price. Right-click, choose Generate, Constructor, deselect the fields to create an empty constructor. Right-click, choose Generate Getters and Setters, select All, and click OK. Now right-click and choose New Package. Name is Repositories. Right-click on the Repositories package node, choose New Interface, call it Items Interface, mark it as a repository, and extend the interface with CRUD repository, taking in the items class and its PK, which is of type integer. Now, let's hook up our project with the H2 database. So, let me go to the application.properties file and add the following lines. For the data source URL, let's say JDBC H2. It is file-based, pointed to a demo file in the downloads folder. Driver class name is org.h2.driver. Username is SA. Password, H2 console is enabled. Hibernate.ddl auto is create drop, meaning Spring Boot will automatically drop and create the backend items table upon startup. Let's say show SQL to true to be able to see the backend SQL being generated. Alright, that is all which is needed to generate the CRUD repository for our items table. All we did was create the model and the repository for it. We did not have to create a service layer or a controller. Let's see the REST APIs in action. Let's start the project. We see it drops the table if it exists, drops the item sequence if it exists, then creates the sequence and the table. The project is up listening on port 8080. Let's go to our browser and type localhost 8080 and we see the get rest URL in the HAL style. JSON Hypertext Application Language or HAL is a simple format that gives a consistent and easy way to hyperlink between resources in our API. Including HAL within our REST API makes it much more explorable to users as well as being essentially self-documenting. So if I click on http localhost 8080/items, it'll get all items, which of course at this point is empty. Let's go to our H2 console by typing in http localhost 8080/h2-console. We see the login screen pointing to our file. Username is SA. Enter the password and click connect. We see our items table in here with its columns. Let's run, select star from items, and it is empty right now. Okay, now let's perform some CRUD operations against it. Here in my Chrome browser, I have installed a REST client extension called yet another REST client, but you can use any other client like Postman, etc. First, let's make a GET call by putting in the URL, click send request. We see no items as expected. Next, let's make a POST call to insert an item. In the payload, put in a JSON with name as table and price as 20. Hit send request and we get a successful response of it being inserted with the get URL to get to this newly inserted item. Going back to our H2 console, let's run this select again, and now we see our item inserted in here. Now let's make a put call to update the price to say 30. So modify the URL to put a /1 at the end. Click send request and it is successful. Let's do a get call again and we see the new price being reflected. Finally, let's do a delete call for item 1. So modify the URL to put a /1 at the end and send the request. Now when we run the get call, we see no items as expected. So all the APIs for the CRUD operation against the items table are in place, and all it needed from us was the model definition and the interface. That's how simple Spring Data REST makes it for us. In this video, we first talked about the benefits of Spring Data REST. Next, we created a Spring Boot project from scratch and saw the CRUD APIs in action using Spring Data REST. Thanks for watching.